getting ready for some football this Saturday. Bob Joyce of the UConn Radio Network joins us now. Is that right, Bob? A week from now, will you be sunning yourself in the Bahamas? Is that where you'll be next week?
I'd like to think I'll be sunning myself, but I'll be doing something as far as work goes because, it never ends, Brian, in the month of November. And it's good to visit with you again, buddy.
Well, that's true. You got to bring the work outside, at least down at the Bahamas when you can. UConn women's basketball, I know our listeners will be shocked to hear, Bob. They're really good again. Shocking news to start off this season, right?
It's a different team. Yes, they have arguably the best player in the game right now in women's college basketball, and Paige Beckers, and she has not disappointed. But they're young. They're really young. They've got a lot of inexperience in the post. A couple of sophomore guards that played a lot last year with all the injuries, as you well know from the fantastic second-round game against the Qs last year at Gamble. AZ Fudd's back any day now from her knee surgery. Aubrey Griffin probably late December, early January, we're hearing. But, they still have the tools that are necessary. And as long as Paige is out there, you always give them a chance to at least get to the Final Four, if not win it all. But tomorrow night's going to be a great night. 40 years of Gino and CD together. And tomorrow night, Gino goes for the all-time wins record in college basketball. Yeah, so it'll be a fun night. And a lot of his former players are showing up somewhere in the area of 65, and they've got a lot of special events planned before and after the game. So, it'll be a fun night in stores.
Yeah, the problem for Tara Vanderveer when she retired, she knew she was going to get passed within about a week. Gino was right behind her on the all-time wins list there, so I'm sure that'll be a fun night for you tomorrow. And then we look ahead to football on Saturday, Bob, and man, what a pleasant surprise it feels like this UConn football team has been this year, sitting at 7-3 off the 3-9 year last year. Did you see this coming this year?
I thought 6-6 was doable at the beginning of the year, and then with this ridiculous 6-game homestand and 7 games altogether, I thought they'd have to go at least 5-2 to really give themselves a chance. Well, they went 6-1 at home this season. They got themselves a road win last week, so here we are, first winning record for UConn since going to the Fiesta Bowl in 2010, and they got a shot at 9 wins if they can win the last 2. We know certainly Saturday won't be easy. They should beat UMass. Should being the operative word, but UMass will be up for that one, and they just gave Liberty a battle this past Saturday. Okay, they go to Georgia this week, but that's for another story for another time. But this UConn team, they've got better and better every week. They throttled Buffalo late September, and then they've won some games that maybe they didn't have any business winning, but that was the difference from last year. They couldn't win the close games last year. Well, for the most part, they've been able to do that this year, and that's the reason why they're 7-3 right now.
I'd say go figure, at least from a Syracuse perspective. What makes you sit up and take notice more than anything is 2 of their losses, which were close ACC games, right? Losing by 5 at Duke, losing to Wake by 3. Like that, those are a little easier to compare. What did that tell you, Bob, about the ability to compete against teams from the Power 4?
It's encouraging. They were down, 17-zip at Duke. They got a pick 6 late first half, and then they scored 2 in the third, took the lead, and gave themselves a chance to win that football game, but Duke was better in the fourth quarter. And then the Wake game, that was coming off the bye week, the first of the 2 bye weeks for them. They didn't play great. They didn't play terrible. They gave themselves a chance to win at the end or tie the game and force overtime. Unfortunately, it came down to a very questionable non-call of a pass interference and holding penalty on the same play that wasn't called, and Wake Forest ends up winning the football game. So they're there. The competition against the ACC has been good. I would expect that to be a step up in competition this week, particularly the fact that the Orange have had a great year under Fran for the first time. And, I watched them last night, as a matter of fact. I recorded a bunch of games. I watched the Virginia Tech game last night, and, boy, they're fun to watch, that's for sure, with an outstanding quarterback and deep wide receiver core that's big. Penya's fast, too. He's the shortest of them all, as you know. But they're just a well-rounded team, and Jim's ready for the challenge, but he knows they've got a tiger by the tail going up to the Dome on Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a wildly entertaining season here around here, Bob, because you just never quite know how these games turn on a dime like 6 or 7 times. It feels like every Saturday that we've been watching coming off. Really, the one game that didn't do that, the Cal game this last week, where they actually had it pretty much in control from start to finish. We got Bob Joyce of the UConn Radio Network with us, getting you ready for Cuse and UConn Saturday at noon in the Dome. You mentioned Jim Mora, third year now. I mean, you know this, Bob. He took over a program that had been a mess there for a while and kind of wandering in the wilderness as the basketball team got back to the Big East and the football team got cast aside a little bit. How has he handled this life as an independent football head coach with the Huskies here?
Well, I think he's handled it better than I thought he would, and if he's gotten a lot of help financially in NIL, and that drives the bus these days, and considering that they're not in a Power 4 conference or any conference affiliation with minimal TV money, they're doing better than I ever thought they would. They brought in some help in the backfield. Nick Evers has been okay at quarterback. I mean, this is a kid that hadn't played in 3 years. They certainly bolstered the wide receiver core through the portal, and the linebacking core was a big plus. Getting guys like Jaden McDonald and Langston Hardy's a homegrown kid, but Jaden McDonald comes over from Troy. He makes a big difference. Guys like that have really helped. Jordan Wright coming from K-State in the defensive backfield has made a big splash out there. So, some guys have chipped in, but the area that they've really benefited the most from are the wide receiver spot and the running back spot. They bring Darrell Robinson over from Charlotte. Cam Edwards, and Mel Brown over from Gardner-Webb have made a big difference in the backfield. Running game has been their strength. Offensive line's been better than anybody thought they would be. So here we are at 7-3 with 2 games to go, and we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, are you surprised, Bob, that they're getting this NIL support for football? I mean, obviously, men's soups, women's soups. Clearly, are you surprised there's enough left over to help out the football team here?
A little bit, but I think there's a core of former football players that I guess the turning point to get more money for NIL was the Tennessee game last year. They got beat up pretty good, and Jim basically told AD David Benedict, if this thing's going to work, we need support, and people have stepped up to help out football. So, that's just a nice thing to see. I mean, look, UConn's a national brand. Everybody knows that, but, and I know it's a lot of it's based on the basketball teams, but baseball's always been good. Hockey's still up and coming. The soccer teams have always been good. But football, at least for a decade they were good. We know that. But lately not so much. But enough of the alums have cared enough to get businesses involved. And here we are, helping get some good guys like Skylar Bell and TJ Sheffield from Big Ten schools. Evers comes over from Wisconsin. I know he was a big get for them. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it is, Bob. Like with an athletic department, a rising tide lifts all boats. A lot of the time, like how much does it help? Like what Hurley's doing with basketball? How much is that helping football because of the recent? I mean, not success is cutting it short. Back-to-back national championships in men's basketball.
I honestly don't know if there's much of a correlation between that and the football team. I'm sure in some ways it will help. I mean, in the financial, depending on who the heavy hitters are, but I'm not sure it's that big a deal.
Okay, yeah, you just never know how those things play off each other. But certainly, men's and women's soups, UConn, they're not looking up at anybody right now in the last few years in those categories. All right, Bob, you mentioned some of the guys here. What's going on this offense? 3 running backs with more than 500 yards. I'm looking at 2 quarterbacks that are playing. What do I need to look at here on Saturday? There's a lot more names than I was prepared for here.
All right, let's start at quarterback because Nick Evers has gone through a couple of head injuries, and he's currently battling, I guess, hip and leg injury or ankle injury that he suffered against UAB. So he's the number one. Good running quarterback. Jim Moore has basically eliminated the slide from his arsenal. When he runs the ball, he wants him to go head first as opposed to feet first because that's where he got his 2 concussions. So he's basically wiped that off, from the list of things Nick Evers can do.
That feels backwards, Bob. So you're supposed
it does, but in a lot of ways it makes sense because when you're going down the slide, you're susceptible to getting whacked a little easier than you are if you dive head first. I guess that's Jim's thought, anyways. But his passing game, he's been okay. He's missed some targets. He's thrown behind the receivers some. Certainly, Joe Fagnano, the transfer from Maine in his second year, has come in and filled in admirably when he's been out. I mean, he led the second half charge last week when they came back at UAB with a couple of touchdown passes. So those, either quarterback will be serviceable. Fagnano's not nearly as athletic as Evers. And then, the running back core, interesting. I mean, we came into the season thinking it was going to be Cam Edwards, who's had a good year, and Victor Rosa, the kid from Bristol, both Connecticut kids. Rosa's kind of the forgotten man in this because he broke his hand early in the season, and he's never really found his way back in the rotation. And what Mel Brown and Darrell Robinson have been able to do, and they're completely different styles of runners. Brown's 5'8", 176, but he can turn on a dime. Robinson's a little more of a power back, but he's very durable. He's been good in short yardage. So the Huskies basically have a three-headed monster, and Edwards had a phenomenal offseason conditioning-wise. You could see it first day of camp. So they've really blossomed with that three-man rotation. Sometimes they'll go with the hot hand. Sometimes they'll just rotate in and out all three of them. It just all depends on what the game situation is and how they're going. But it's been fun to watch those three guys in the backfield.
All right, paint the picture for me, Bob. Say it's a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. What has to happen Saturday for UConn to be in that position in the Dome?
I'll take it. Well, they've got to get some turnovers, which they were able to do against UAB, that's for sure. And we'll see if the Orange are able to treat them to a few turnovers. But they've got to play mistake-free football. They've got to get some TJ Sheffield, I think, punt return success. Sheffield's a pretty good punt returner, and we know Pena is a good punt returner for the Qs. The offensive line has got to perform well against the Syracuse defense. And then the UConn front four and the linebackers, they've not only got to be able to put some pressure, quick pressure on the Syracuse quarterback because, it's amazing to me, Brian, how well the Orange control time of possession, and they pass way more than they run the football. They're still top five in time of possession, which for a passing team just absolutely impresses me. And Jim Moore talked about it today when we recorded his coach's show. But the Huskies have to play great. They have to play very well, mistake-free football, and hope Syracuse makes a few mistakes in the process. And I think that would be the formula for a close game into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I've never seen time of possession like this with the volume of passing. I've never, you usually see, if a team wings it around all over the place, like they have the ball 25 minutes a game. No, they're throwing almost every down. They got the ball 35 minutes a game. It is literally the damnedest thing I've ever seen. It's really hard to explain.
It's fun to watch. You got a great quarterback. You've got one running back that has had a solid year for them, and then an outstanding tight end. Let's start there. Gadsden's had a great career at Syracuse, and then the other guys have just picked up, and obviously Fran has hit the portal well, not only getting the quarterback, but the kid Simmons, the Virginia Tech game was his breakout game, right?
Yep.
With a couple of touchdowns. So, yeah, they've got a lot of weapons. They're fun to watch. I know they're aggressive on defense, just like UConn is. They play a 3-3-5 defensively, and Matt Brock has done a really nice job defensively. And two other numbers to keep an eye on for UConn is their red zone offense and their red zone defense. Red zone defense, they've only given up 11 touchdowns this season, so that's big. And their red zone offense has actually been pretty good this year. So the Huskies have been good. Look, they've taken advantage of a weaker schedule for sure, because you don't know from one year to the next, Brian, how these teams are going to be, and there's so much change now with the portal. When you go out and schedule these games, you don't know what you're going to get. But the Huskies have taken advantage of it, and here we are sitting at 7-3, and we're going to be going to a bowl game. Question is, will we get 8 wins? Will they get 9 wins? And where they're going? But I would think, being a Northeast guy and a reasonable guy, knowing that Northeast football is tough to gauge and it's tough to win in the Northeast in this day and age of college football. If the average UConn fan saw the Huskies win 7-8 games a year, I think we'd be ecstatic for a long period of time, and then maybe go for 9 or 10 wins in a particular season. But what Jim's done with this group, and the coaching staff's been phenomenal. Yeah, this is the last test for the Huskies before the bowl game to see how they stack up against the ACC, and what a better place to do it than the Dome.
All right, well, we know it, Bob. Always good when Syracuse and UConn are playing in anything, so it's great that it's happening this weekend. Good this is on the schedule, right? It just got signed. It'll be on the schedule for the next few years. So that's
good to see. I'm glad to see that, and UConn needs more of that, obviously. That certainly helps with when they play here at the Rent from an attendance standpoint, so we're looking forward to it.
All right, Bob. Always good to chat. Thanks a lot. Safe travels where all the places you're going here over the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. But thanks a lot, man.
Brian, if you're at the game Saturday, I hope to see you.
All right, sounds good, Bob. There he is, our guy Bob Joyce from the UConn Radio Network. Known Bob a long time. Unfortunately, when Bob and I show up in the same place, that usually means UConn's about to win because it was usually a women's basketball game.